All right, welcome. If you want to build really incredible things with code, you need a powerful toolkit. So today, we're going to open up the Python toolbox and really master two of the most essential tools in any developer's workshop: functions and collections. Let's get building.
Okay, let's be real, we've all been there, right? You write a few lines of code to do something, and hey, it works great. But then you need to do that exact same thing again. And then again. It gets so repetitive, it's super inefficient, and trust me, there is a much, much better way.
So what's the fix? Well, that brings us to our first power tool, the function. This concept is absolutely at the core of writing smart, clean, and reusable code. This is how you really start to think like a programmer.
So what is a function exactly? Well, the best analogy is a recipe. You write down the steps just one time, you give it a name, like chocolate cake, and then anytime you want that cake, you just follow the recipe instead of having to figure it all out from scratch every single time.
All right, let's break down our very first function here. Do you see that keyword, def? That's you telling Python, hey, pay attention, I'm defining a recipe. We've given this one a simple name, greet. And those parentheses, right now they're empty, but just think of them as the spot where we'll list our ingredients later on. Then, when we type greet at the bottom, that's us calling the function, basically telling Python, okay, run that recipe now.
So a recipe that makes the exact same cake every single time. That's useful, sure. But what if you want to change things up? Maybe add some different frosting? That's where customizing our functions comes in. It's time to start adding some ingredients. And just like that, we've upgraded our greet function. See that word name inside the parentheses now? That's what we call a parameter. It's basically a placeholder for an ingredient. Then when we call the function, we pass in an argument, in this case the text Sean, which fills in that name placeholder. All of a sudden, our simple function is way more flexible.
Up to this point, our functions have just shown stuff on the screen. But what if you need your recipe to actually give you the finished cake so you can do something else with it? Well, that's exactly what the return keyword is for. Our addition function here doesn't just display the answer, it calculates it and then hands it back, so we can store that result in a new variable, summation, and use it whenever we want. This is a crucial point. Print is for showing, but return is for giving back.
Okay, so when we're feeding these ingredients, these arguments, into our function, we've actually got a couple of ways to do it. The first, and most straightforward, is with required arguments. You just list the values, and Python lines them up by position. Simple enough. But there's a more flexible way, keyword arguments, where you actually label which value goes to which parameter.
And this is where you really see the power of keyword arguments. Just look at those two function calls. In the second one, we've completely flipped the order, passing designation before name. But because we labeled them, Python doesn't get confused at all. It knows exactly where each piece of information is supposed to go. And the output is exactly the same. So cool.
Okay, but what about those ingredients you use almost every single time? The ones that rarely change. That's where default arguments are a lifesaver. You can give a parameter a preset value right there in the definition. This makes your function so much easier to call because you only need to provide arguments for the things you actually want to change.
Take a look here. In the function definition itself, we've set sal equals 12,000. That's our default. So when we call the function with just emp, Sam, we're only providing the name. Python sees that the salary is missing and says, no problem, I'll just use the default, and it automatically assigns 12,000. It's a fantastic shortcut.
All right, our tools are getting seriously powerful now, but they all have one little limitation. They expect a fixed number of arguments. What if you need a function that can add, say, 2 numbers, or 5, or even 100? We need a tool that can handle unlimited inputs. Get ready for one of Python's coolest features. We're going to start with something called args. Honestly, the best way to picture it is like a magic grocery bag. You don't have to decide how many items you're buying beforehand, you just keep tossing them in, and the bag magically expands to hold everything. See that little star, the asterisk right before the word numbers? That's literally the magic spell. It tells Python, hey, whatever arguments I get, just pack them all together into a collection called numbers. And you can see it right there in action. We call our addition function once with 2 numbers and then again with 5, and the exact same function handles both of them perfectly.
Okay, so if args is like a magic bag for a bunch of items, its cousin, double quargs, is more like a detailed shopping list. It also handles an unlimited number of inputs, but it's specifically designed to collect named or keyword arguments. And yep, You guessed it, the double asterisk is the key this time. It tells Python to scoop up all the keyword arguments, things like first name equals Jack and salary equals 12,000, and bundle them into a special container called a dictionary. Look at how the second function call has way more details, but our function doesn't care. It just gathers up all of that structured info into one object. The flexibility here is just incredible.
All right, we've spent a lot of time on our tools, our functions. Now let's talk about the materials they work on, our data. I mean, in any good workshop, you need a system to organize your materials, right? In Python, we call that system collections.
So what is a collection, really? It's simple, actually. It's just any object that can hold multiple other items. Think of them as all the containers in your workshop. You've got your main toolbox, you've got smaller bins and organizers, and each one is designed to hold different types of things in a particular way.
And the first container we're going to grab, the most common one you'll ever use in Python, is the list. Think of it as your go-to general-purpose bin. You can throw anything in there, numbers, text, you name it, and it keeps them all in order. What's super important is that it's mutable, which just means you can change it, add or remove items after you've made it. You'll always spot a list by its classic square brackets.
And here's a perfect example of a list in action. We've created a variable called BookList, and we've stored 3 different book titles right inside those square brackets. It's just a simple, organized way to manage a group of related items, all ready to be used by one of our functions.
Wow, okay. We have covered a ton of ground, from building our very first functions to organizing our data in lists. So let's just do a quick review to make sure these really core concepts are locked in.
First question for you. What is the main difference between a required argument and a default argument? I'll give you a second. Okay, got it? A required argument has to be provided every single time you call the function. But a default argument is optional. If you don't provide it, the function just says, no worries, and uses its preset value.
And one more. When would you choose to use args? Think about a practical situation. Well, you'd use it any time you need to write a function that can operate on a totally variable number of inputs. Imagine a function that needs to calculate the average of any amount of numbers you throw at it. Args is what gives you that awesome flexibility. Look, you've just put some of the most fundamental tools in programming into your personal toolkit. You can now write code that is reusable, that's flexible, and that's well organized. The workshop's open and your toolkit is ready. So the only question left is, what are you going to build first?